back outside of the studio, back onto Google Hangout to welcome back a guest from a previous show. This is Rachel Abrams from Turnstone Consulting, an urban strategist who was with us last time talking about the Arch Grounds. Rachel, thanks for coming back to the show. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Obviously, this time we're talking transportation. Let's talk a little bit about our relationship to our ride here in the States. Can you start by just giving us a little snapshot of maybe the American psyche when it comes to transportation?
Well, if you'll forgive my English accent, I've been here a while and I obviously know about the car culture of America. The 20th century city was built on the roads and the interstate system, and the geography of American cities has the car at the center of it. But as we get into the 21st century and face some serious challenges, both locally and short term in the everyday as we commute, and also in the long term as we look forward to an uncertain future of what's going to fuel our cars, we're really looking progressively at what major and second-tier cities are going to do.
So what are those maybe secondary cities going to have to do when you look into the future of transportation?
I think the most successful examples are ones where there are mixed options. The car is not going away, the roads aren't going away. The question for both of those things is how else can we use roads? What other vehicles can we put on roads? The other question is what other ways can we use cars so that not only private vehicles, and San Francisco has been leading all kinds of collaborative car sharing, ride sharing schemes.
Do we have a unique set of circumstances that we need to kind of carve our own path in a city the size of St. Louis?
Well, I think it's interesting to not throw out the idea that a smaller city can look at a larger one for inspiration, because large cities are actually getting cues from neighborhoods, from local schemes, from local activity, from neighborhoods organizing their solutions for themselves that can scale up. I think that piloting something like the bike sharing scheme in Manhattan would have been an enormous risk for New York City had there not been examples of it already working in Boston, in Portland, in Washington, D.C., and in other European cities. And certainly those kinds of exchanges, those kinds of questions about how do you share transportation rather than own it, were questions that smaller cities were answering ages ago. What can we put in place in terms of changing the service so that people make a choice to get on the bus rather than get in their car to get themselves where they need to go? And the answer is actually not really to do with building infrastructure. It's to do with creating a really effective, trustworthy, affordable service system around this set of fleet vehicles that you get on and off and you use for as long as you need them.
We've talked a lot about how St. Louis can learn from and compares to other cities. Can you talk about how the U.S. compares to other countries? Or is that even a fair comparison given our geographical differences?
There are definitely really good case studies coming both out of American cities and international cities. Basically, we're still working in 20th century infrastructure. We're still fixed to the places that we built in the last century. Those are not going away. Some of them are crumbling and need restoring. The car is a major kind of piece, a major asset of people's economic development and independence. And I'm certainly not arguing that they go away. But I think in the next 50 to 100 years, we're going to be looking at radical transformations in personal transportation in terms of how they're fueled and the systems of use for sharing and getting access to them.
Here in St. Louis, we, a couple of years ago, underwent a major project to get a brand new interstate through our region here, Interstate 64. And it's pretty well full of traffic at rush hour, not most of the rest of the day. It's only at rush hour that it's full. But at the same time, we know our infrastructure is not holding up and hasn't had the same investment that it used to. So I'm curious your take. Is part of this transportation planning need to have more investment in supporting the cars we have now and the way we get around now?
Well, that argument about creating another lane is just expanding the capacity for more traffic jams is one that was very loud in vociferous voices in the UK when the government during the 80s was very pro road building instead of investing in affordable rail and improving public transportation. And I think you also raise an interesting point where you talk about the roads being full at rush hour and basically underused in the rest of the working week, which leads to another question, which is if roads are communication channels, basically to get people to work and back, perhaps an even more radical integrated way of thinking about it is what can we do as employers to sort of time shift to say that the working day isn't 9 to 5. So in terms of thinking about transit planning, you have to go much broader than, how many stripes of white paint are you going to put on this bed of asphalt in the next building program. You really got to think about, like, what is the point of having a car that you basically use for an hour a day that moves more slowly in traffic than horses and carts moved in cities 100 years ago, if it's just going to sit in a parking lot reflecting the sun for the rest of the day? And the answer to that is that's the only thing we can do until there are other ways to move us around. And we also use information technology to connect without actually going from place to place. But we still need to connect. We still need to really meet real people to do real business and have real fun. So, the car needs to be cared for.